Rights that do not flow from duty well performed are not worth having. Mahatma Gandhi. I, Uday Simha, on behalf of School of Law, Presidency University, Bangalore, welcome you all this evening virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students, the School of Law, Presidency University, Bangalore has taken this initiative to start a lecture series named Nyāya Vaibhava. In order to officially start the said lecture series, this evening we have amidst us virtually Hon'ble Justice Srishananda, Judge, High Court of Karnataka. May I now request Professor Dr. Sandeep S. Desai, Dean, School of Law, Presidency University, for his welcome address. Sir.
Good evening, one and all, and greetings from School of Law, Presidency University, Bangalore. Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda, Judge, High Court of Karnataka, and the distinguished speaker of the evening, Shri Nisar Ahmed, esteemed Chancellor of Presidency University, Dr. V. Subhakar, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Presidency University, Dr. Muddu Vinay, our beloved Pro Vice Chancellor of Presidency University, Dr. Surendra Kumar, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Presidency University, Dr. N.T. Rao, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Presidency University, Dr. Biran Moideen, Honorable Registrar of Presidency University, my dear colleagues, dear students, and various invitees from the distinguished bench and the bar who are here to attend and listen to the Honorable Chief Guest of the evening, and other invitees. It indeed gives me immense pleasure to share with you the fact that we are starting with this lecture series, Nyāya Vaibhava, or Majesty of Justice, as it can be roughly translated into English. It may not really be an exaggeration to say that basically two concepts have baffled, enthused, interested the mankind since time immemorial: morality and justice. From east to west, I must say, these two concepts have always been the focus of various jurists, scholars, philosophers, and laymen alike. If we consider, for example, our own ancient Indian experience, we have many jurists and scholars like Manu, Yajnavalkya, Narada, Parashara, Apastambha, Vashishta, so on and so forth. And we can come down up to Chanakya as well, who have dwelt on this issue of justice and morality that have left an incredible mark on the transformation and evolution of the mankind as a whole. If we consider, for example, the West, we know that from Aristotle through St. Thomas Aquinas to Amartya Sen, well, on the one hand, these concepts have not only inspired, intrigued, and of course invigorated the mankind. On the other hand, they have enabled, ennobled, and empowered the mankind to become the guardian angels of their fellow beings. If we consider, for example, the seminal works of jurists like Vijnaneshwara, let us say the creator of Mitakshara law, or Jimmu Tavahana, who is responsible for giving us that great idea, concept, work, that is Daya Bhaga system of law. So whether we consider the East or the West, everywhere what has mattered is how these dual concepts of morality and justice have always been responsible to shape the mankind into the position that we are in this 21st century. Of course, if we consider the Western experiment, we know that when they speak about just or justice, they are focusing more on equality and fraternity or fairness. While when it comes to East, we all know that we have spotlight more on the concept of dharma. In fact, when we are talking of the concept of nyāya and dharma in ancient Indian jurisprudence, we have attributed the concept of dharma or nyāya to the kings because we used to say Raja Pratyaksha Devata. We have elevated the mortal kings to the level of justice because we believe that God is the giver of justice and those kings and queens were nothing but the agents of the said God himself. That God Almighty resided in those kings and delivered justice to us. This has been, in a nutshell, the idea of justice entwined with morality. That being the case, we in School of Law, Presidency University, thought that we should start a lecture series which aptly depicts, which aptly demonstrates this idea of justice and its majesty. Hence, we have come out with this idea of nyāya vaibhava or majesty of justice. And to start this lecture series today, we requested one of the most learned judges, one of the few highly scholastic, academically oriented justices, Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda, Judge High Court of Karnataka, to deliver a lecture today and inaugurate this series. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda to this august gathering. His Lordship has a master's in law and had about 17 to 18 years of practice in various parts of the country, and especially in all the metros, Chennai, Bombay, Delhi, Kolkata, Bangalore, of course. And in 2008, His Lordship was selected as Principal District Judge directly after about 17 to 18 years of glorious service to his clientele. And from 2008, His Lordship has worked in various capacities as Additional District Judge and then Principal District Judge in places like Gulbarga, Haveri, Dharwad, Karwar, so on and so forth. In recognition of his illustrious service to the legal profession, the bar and the bench, Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda was elevated to the High Court of Karnataka in the year 2020. And since then, His Lordship has been not only just dispensing law and legal principles and legal relief, but he is the harbinger of justice in its real sense as well. His Lordship, Shri Justice V. Srishananda, has that word knowledge, which comes from the Sanskrit root with Veda in his name itself. In fact, Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda is basically Honorable Justice Shri Vedavyasachar Srishananda. That word Veda is embedded in His Lordship's name, and His Lordship has time and again amply demonstrated the level of knowledge that a justice of this country, a justice of High Court and Supreme Court, would need to deliver the true justice to masses. With these few words, I take immense pleasure in welcoming Honorable Justice Shri V. Srishananda to this lecture series and request His Lordship with his inaugural lecture inaugurate this series and wish us that we would also be in a position to reach not only just one milestone, reach hundreds of milestones, thousands of milestones, and we request His Lordship to be with us on all such milestones when we reach the 50th lecture, 100th lecture, 250th lecture, and like that, it should go on up to 1,000 plus lectures. And on all those walks, we request Honorable Justice V. Srishananda to help us guide this through. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I take immense pleasure in presenting the guest speaker of the evening, Honorable Justice V. Srishananda, Judge, High Court of Karnataka. And it is over to you, Your Lordship, now to please enthrall us with your knowledge and with your scholarship. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. In fact, Dean, my good friend Sri Desai, has made my job easy in introducing the topic, and as he put it, the topic, though it says the jurisprudential analysis of rights and duties relationship, we need to just focus a little bit on the ancient jurisprudence of this country, this great country, because the topic is, and the lecture series is named as Nyāya Vaibhava. We need to recollect what this great country had. One would be surprised that, to note that not only we had several centuries earlier written law, when the rest of the world was not even in a position to have a dignified, civilized life. The jurisprudence, as one can understand, is the philosophy of law. Philosophy has got a broader meaning. Probably in any future lectures, we will also devote much time on what the philosophy is. Now, for the today's topic, we can only say jurisprudence is philosophy of law that can embrace itself into many things. In other words, it seeks to explain what the law is about in the most general way. Most laws, especially the present day modern specific subjects like Indian Penal Code or Revenue Statute like Income Tax Act or Industrial Disputes Act, are all the man-made in the sense to cater to the needs of the civilized society. One must not forget that how this jurisprudence has developed. Before there was a civilization in this globe. Therefore, jurisprudence on one hand may discuss with these present day laws, but also one has to look into, and it discusses the law in most general way. In other words, what is the law? What is its purpose? How it originated? Does it develop? What are its basic concepts, structure? What is its relation with other social phenomena like economy, social system, etc. One can easily say, if somebody is asked to define law, it may be very difficult, but one can easily say law is nothing but a codified common sense. Or we can also say law is a set of rules which govern this society. How there are other systems like the religion, morality, etc., which also prescribe rules of social conduct. What is it that makes law different from religion, morality? In this regard, little bit of the survey is necessary, the history is necessary. Answer is very simple. While prescribing rules of social conduct as to religion, morality, etc., is mainly concerned with the other aspects of the matter, it is the law which deals with the man-to-man relationship, man-to-property relationship. Private property came into picture. When it came into existence, the law also came along with it. Ownership, keeping it, enjoying it, possessing it. These are all the things that need to be explained in a conceptual way. Therefore, one has to look forward for which is the ancient jurisprudence that is available on the globe today. One may not be surprised that we should look forward for Indian ancient jurisprudence. Therefore, this particular point of time, one has to look into the historical school of jurisprudence, modern jurisprudence, which is a combination of positivism and sociological jurisprudence and natural law. So while one hand, the history would say how this country has had the benefit of the ancient Indian jurisprudence. On the other hand, we have a combination in the form of enacted laws, the positivism, and also the sociological jurisprudence and the natural law. In ancient India, not only was there tremendous development of the field like mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, literature. Likewise, there was also tremendous development in the field of law as well. This is evident from large number of legal treatises written in ancient India. Of course, majority of them are in Sanskrit. Only very small fraction of total legal literature has survived. But even what is survived is a large in number when we look at the quantity wise. It is needless to emphasize that the Hindu law originated from Vedas. It is also called Shruti. However, when it has been remembered by the people and then written into it, it is called Smritis. I am not going into the details of those aspects of the matter, having regard to the time constraints. But the texts like Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Narada, Parashara, which the Dean has referred to, these Smritis did have its impact in administration of rule of justice at the relevant point of time. Many of them find a beautiful way of demonstrating how important legal aspects were also dealt by the courts. Interested may look into a 3rd century case reported as Sridhara versus Mahidara, which is a case on pious obligation, and the details of which finds place in the book written by Justice Rama Joyce in a book called Legal and Constitutional History. And further, Main has referred in his Hindu law while dealing with the subject on pious obligation. The case law is very simple. Pious obligation, everybody knows that the 3 generations have to pay the debts, even though there is no property. There was a case, even now that place is now traceable, it is in Bihar. The then Patliputra of the present day Patna. Sridhara's ancestors has invested some money with Mahidhara's ancestors. A very great famine came and some of the generations washed away, like the present day corona pandemic. Sridhara survived, Mahidhara being the great grandson of the original person who had the deposit also survived. Mahidhara stopped paying the interest and also failed to return the principal amount. A suit was filed into the court of law with a prayer that a particular sum was deposited with the Mahidhara's ancestors on a particular contract, and amount was to be repaid, and few installments were paid, few interests were paid, few months interest were paid, but now the defendant is refusing to pay the principal as well as the interest. After the receipt of the suit summons, defendant files his written statement. Mind you, this is a 3rd century matter that I am saying, where the rest of the world did not know what is the right, what is the debt, what is the mode of recovery. We had the system in our country. So written statement says, as per the law existing then, the liability would stop with the grandchildren. The Sanskrit word is pautraihi. That means to say in plurality, the grandchildren. And by general interpretation, the defense was very much acceptable. Now the judge, the Raja was the judge then, the king was the judge. He is in trouble. If he accepts the written statement, injustice will occur. But if he interprets the law, that is the law. So he refers the matter to a Pandit community like the present day larger bench. The Pandit community had a detailed discussion on the pros and cons of proper interpretation. Needless to emphasize, they consulted Mimamsa, the great text. And interpretation was made in such a way, the Pandit community gave a report to the king that since the defendant has succeeded to the property of his great grandfather, the liability is fastened on to the property and therefore he is liable. Even though the pautraihi word is there, and pautraihi to be interpreted in such a manner that if there is no property, then the liability stops with the grandchildren, and if the property has passed on, then the liability will go on. Pautraihi would be so on and so forth in the lineal decidency. One can compare this provision even today in the CPC in Order 21. We have to establish that judgment debtor has actually succeeded to the property, the legal representatives of the judgment debtor has succeeded to the property, then only the decree is executable against them. So one can trace this to 3rd century. Then Raja, after getting this particular opinion from the Pandit community, the larger bench or the referred matter reference has been answered, in the today's parlance, the Raja then says, look, you have to pay the amount because you have succeeded to the property. It did not stop there. He went further and said, the defendant lawyer name was Vivada Ratnakara. So he says, since such a plea is taken which is injurious to the society at large, though it is capable of interpretation, the interpretation that we have brought it before the court is incorrect, which will have a great injury to the society. Therefore, I will cancel your sanad. Such a celebration we had. Be it what it may, it's all there in the glory. The country had so many invasions and so many tinkering has taken place to our jurisprudence. Therefore, one cannot now look into these aspects of the matter. And after we had the independence, our framers of legislation has given us certain things. By then, modern concepts were available. All those things are taken into, and constitution we have accepted. Therefore, we cannot now look into it. But there is nothing wrong that what was there, one can look into as a student of law. One can look into what was there and accept the best practices. When we look at that, we may also try to compare this with the other jurisprudences available. In ancient Rome, most of the law was not made by the legislature. As all you know, it was the writings of eminent jurists, maybe Gauss, Pulpin, Papin, and ultimately great Justinian Code. The trend followed in the civil law system which prevailed continental Europe, where the commentaries of eminent jurists are cited in the law courts, unlike the common law system. All that ultimately had a churning process, and in that process, the primitive interpretation started coming as to what is a right and what is a duty. With this little background of what happened in ancient India and the ancient Rome and rest of the world, we can now straight away come to the point today's subject. What is meaning of a right? This is where the lecture could be probably focused. A right in the ordinary sense, as all you know, is a term which means number of things, but it is generally taken to mean the standard permitted action with a certain sphere. Probably this would fit into the most apt definition of the right. Before that, we could have had the definition given by Austin, Holland, and also Salmon. Austin and Holland gave some gray area, left some gray areas in defining the right, imperfect right, etc. I'm not going into the details of it, having regard to the time constraint today we have. I would request all of you to please have your doubts or the questions, if any, in this lecture noted and then send it across to the organizers, the moderator. We will have one session only to answer those queries. Today, having regard to the time constraint, I would be rushing through the process, the definition and other aspects of the matter. And I assure all of you who have all joined here that an interaction or a question and answer session would be there in the near future. As one can find out and then crystallize, the summoned way of understanding the right had two important aspects. He called it as rule of right, means rule of law, as one can understand. In other words, which is judicially, a right is an aspect which is judicially enforceable, is what Salmon propounded. Thus, according to Salmon, a right must be one which is judicially enforceable, that is the main element. Second, of course, is the right in interest. So therefore, it is a merger of the earlier definitions given by the other jurists. So right of interest or the element of interest is essential to constitute a right. So for as Salmon first element is concerned, it is a corollary to the definition of law. So jurisprudence, as you know, I was a student. It is always difficult for the lecturers to make the concept understand, make the students to understand the concept. Therefore, one would feel the jurisprudence is somewhat an abstract subject. I felt so as a lawyer. I felt so as a student. I'm now feeling also now, after so much of experience in the field, little experience also, I would say, modest enough to say, that sometimes the jurisprudence is of that nature. It is little tough to understand. Then when we go conceptually deep into it, probably we'll look into it. When such circumstances appear, it is always our honorable judges of the high courts and honorable judges of the Supreme Court came to our rescue. So this summoned definition was the subject matter before the Honorable Apex Court in the case of State of Rajasthan versus Union of India, reported in AIR 1977, Supreme Court, page 1361. Their lordships, while giving the interpretation of summons on the right, have propounded that in the strict sense, legal rights are correlatives of legal duties and defined as interest whom the law protects by imposing corresponding duties on others. Therefore, one can easily now understand right and duty are the two faces of the same coin. Now, having said this, there are theories of rights. I will not be in a position to go in detail to those of the theories, but I would definitely mention them. The first theory was the will theory. The second theory was the interest theory. So both these theories propounded its in own way what is the right and an interest or an obligation or the duty. Therefore, from those theories, one can easily say the elements of a legal right are not only two as Salmon propounded, now it can be probably made into little more meaningful, little more enlarged scope. So the present day, what one can understand with the right is the element of a legal right is four elements majorly. They are called the subject. That is, subject means a person in whom the right is vested or the holder of a right. That would be probably easy to understand, a holder of a right. Now, the legal jugglery, the word holder means what? Then there can be no right without a subject. This is the way that one can understand. Therefore, there must be a subject who is holding the right. The next one is act of forbearance. Act of forbearance, right related to some act or forbearance. See, you can see now, therefore, a positive right is there and a right where you are asking somebody not to do something. In other words, you can ask a person, that is the duty person who is required to oblige to follow the right in a positive way to do this or not to do this. So this is how the right was. Secondly, it was little bit deviated and a right was in clarity was carved out. It obliges the person to act or forbear in favor of the person who is entitled to right. You can now see the prohibitory injunctions, mandatory injunctions. This is how the law has developed over a period. So acting is one thing, inaction is another thing. Not to act in a particular manner is yet another thing. The object of right or the res concern, it is the thing that is in respect of which the right exists or exercised. You see now, yet another aspect we have made. I have a right. If I don't exercise, the things will continue as if it is there. In physics, we say if a particular thing is at the rest, unless the external force is there, it will be continued to be in the same position. Likewise, a particular action is there. If you don't exercise, that action will continue. That is where that the exercise of the right is there. If I want to exercise, I cannot exercise in the thin air, no? Therefore, you need to have somebody who is bound to oblige to follow it. So this is how the concept started developing. The person bound or the person of incidence, that is the opposite party of the right holder. The person bound or the person of incidence is the fourth element of a legal right. It means a person upon whom falls a correlative duty. Now, from Salmon definition to the present definition, we have clearly identified how a right could be exercised. Of course, will theory and interest theory has been merged into, and therefore, this we have taken it. There afterwards, we have also carved out what are the different type of rights: natural rights, inherent rights, statutory rights, contractual rights, all these things. However, when it came for the duties, it was little difficult to define the duty. Right, we have defined. What exactly is the duty that has to be made was again a question. So again, we have to fall back onto the definition of the right only to understand what the duty is. If you understand right, correspondingly, there must be a duty carved out. So that duty was sought to be made, and each of the duty are, if you are bound to do something, then you will have to do that. Otherwise, if you don't have a right, then the other man has got a right. This is the negative definition. Then subjections, that is the liability, and also disabilities. These were the four things that were noted as against the right, liberty, power, and immunity. So claim and duty, the right and duty, all these things went hand in hand. Privilege, whether it is absolute or it is a qualified privilege. Liberty, and liberty, whether it is absolute. Liberty controlled by some statute. Liberty with conditions. Exercising, before exercising the liberty, did you do your part? All these things started cropping up one after the other as the concept got clarified and concept started being interpreted by the courts. That is how the jurisprudence started developing. It all started with a property. Ancient stories are there, how a possession has come into picture. A monkey in a forest one day dropped a coconut. To open the coconut, he took a stone and then kept it with it, and we took a stone and then opened it and then ate it. Next day also he started using it. All these stories we have heard. Then ownership was there. Ownership right was exercised. Then some other monkey wanted to come and take it. This monkey pulled it. All these things we are told. That is only to understand the concept. Whether such a thing has happened or not, nobody knows. It's an example to give how a right started being exercised when we understand the jurisprudence. Now, power and liability was also another type of right that we started doing it. Now came the government exercising certain powers. In that regard, certain things were also started creeping in. The king started exercising some power. The subjects exercising some immunity. The power people exercising some immunity, and subjects are bound by it. All these things started. So therefore, the question of immunity and disability was sought to be defined. Now we cannot go back straight away defining the immunity and disability, forgetting the right and duties. So rights and duties having given a particular meaning, immunity and disability is sought to be given a deduced meaning from the right and duty itself. As every one of us know, immunity is defined as a freedom on the part of one person against having given a legal relation altered by a given act or omission on the part of the another person. It is little difficult to understand. But once you understand what the right is or the duty is, then this could be easily deduced. So therefore, if we try to say in this fashion that it is opposite to the liability, probably immunity can be easily understood. I am liable to pay something, but X is not liable to pay because he enjoys that exception, that is called immunity. So it is also said that exemption from having given a legal relation changed by another. Claim in case of an immunity will become a no claim. In case of a duty, liberty or privilege. In case of a power, it is a disability. In case of a liability, it becomes immunity. So this is how the correlative of the immunity and disability is there. Disability means the absence of power. Immunity means the opposite of liability. Disability is the opposite of the power. So these are the concepts that started making it. With these things, again the right and duty had some more meaning. It got widened. Rights and duties are very important elements of any jurisprudence, for that matter, are elements of law. The administration of justice, in most part, consists of enforcement of and enforcement of right and fulfillment of duties. Whenever the persons do not do it, then comes the question of a neutral person, some agency which has to enforce it. Therefore, courts are established. So unless a jurisprudence is there, it is easy today. Anybody comes up before the court with a declaratory prayer, the first question that the court puts it, what is your legal right? Now the party has to explain what is the legal right. And he must also say what is the mischief being caused by the defendant or the rest of the world. Then came the question of declaration, then the relief in rem, relief in personam, all these aspects started coming. Therefore, somebody has to oblige your right. That has to be looked into. That person who is required to oblige the right, is that particular portion is called duty, and the one person who exercises it is called the right. So rights and duties are correlated to each other in such a way that one cannot be conceived without the other. In other words, they are the two faces of the same coin. Existence of one depends on the existence of the other, and therefore the right and duty came. Then somewhere some other interpretation was also tried to be given. In that regard, Austin played a role. So when we see Austin's view on the jurisprudence aspect, Austin supported and said there are four kinds of absolute duties. So this is where the jurisprudential portion got more crystallized. Duties not regarding persons, duties owed to the persons indefinitely, self-regarding duties, and duties owed to the sovereign. So the one which was there in some sort of a hazy ideas got crystallized with the Austin rule. Having said that, further classification of the duties also took place. The duty again had what is called positive duty and negative duty, like the right. A positive duty implies some act on the part of the person on whom it is imposed. If a person owes the money to another, the former is under the duty to pay the money to the other. This is called positive duty. It's a very simple example that I am giving it. Likewise, the negative duty was also defined. A negative duty implies forbearance on the part of the person on whom it is imposed. Easy example for this is that if a person owns a land, others are under duty not to make any interference with that person's use of land. This is regarded as a negative duty. And again, the duties were further divided into primary duty and secondary duty. Duties enriched thereafterwards. Then came, in the Indian context, the Constitution gave certain rights. Now one can see what are the Constitution. There are many lectures on that. Each one of them have their own implications and requires a lot of time. Just to have a quick look at this, that Article 14, Article 19, right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, right to life, right to constitutional remedies, all these things are the duties that flow from the Constitution. Correspondingly, we also have constitutional duties now. Therefore, of course, maybe by way of an amendment that we made it as a fundamental duties by inserting Article 51A to safeguard the sovereignty and integrity. Now you see the fundamental rights that has been enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution of India, and Article 51A it need not have any correspondence duty with regard to the fundamental rights. There again, you see, the fundamental rights that has been given, you can exercise it primarily against the state also. State we have defined in Article 12 of the Constitution, and that has got a wider meaning. There the concern will be the corresponding duty holders. Apart from that, fundamental duties are also now made. A hue and cry is nowadays made is that this also be made compulsory. So many case laws have come. For paucity of the time, let us not get into that. So the state is now trying to impose certain duties. This is where the jurisprudential aspect has developed a lot. See what the duty that is sought to be imposed now to safeguard the sovereignty and integrity of the India. This is the most important duty that is now before the courts of law. Many cases are there. Respect to the national anthem, national flag, all these things are there. Now this duty, when it is told in the Constitution, if somebody does not obey it, what is the remedy? Some penal statutes are there, no doubt. But most of them come under what is called moral obligations. This is what ancient India also said. Yajnavalkya departed from the religious angle and started more on the social aspects and morality aspects. So one can trace that link between the old Indian jurisprudence and the present day 51A. Article 51A, it requires a lot of deliberation. Probably some of the professors, some of the learned would making it as a subject by itself in the series. The dean will take care of it. Probably when the milestone is reached, I may also join with regard to those aspects of the matter with the specific case laws on those aspects of the matter. Some of them are sub judice before the apex court. Some of them are already decided. With a case law, interested persons can have a regular lecture itself on these aspects of the matter. For the present day, today's subject, I only mentioned it that this is class of duties that has come up. Jurisprudentially, it has not been recognized earlier, and by way of an amendment, the Constitution has imposed these duties. How far these duties, where its right came, whether the corresponding right was there, we do not know. It is a question of debate. Now, with these fundamental duties, if you say, what may be the corresponding aspect if somebody looks into? Probably down the line, a decade or two, one may not be surprised that, if you want to claim the fundamental rights, you should follow the fundamental duties. We can see some semblance of these things being echoed in few of the judgments, if not in so many words. So one cannot say that fundamental rights and obligations are in the form of fundamental duties, but they are trying to now find a link out of it. If you want to claim this, you be like this. Let us see how the law develops on that. In a separate lecture, we can discuss with few case laws on the said aspect of the matter. I am sure that the organizers will note it and then make it as a subject. Antecedent and remedial rights are also a classification of rights, perfect and imperfect rights, which will go back to the Holland's and the Austin's theory, which we followed in the beginning. And then perfect and imperfect rights, positive and negative rights. These are the aspects which we have already looked into, some aspects of matter. Now the yet another thing is right to be exercised against the rest of the world or in a person. So this particular aspect has also seen a tremendous, enormous changes. Certain orders are now passed where you need not show who is your defendant. You may find it that respondent is nil or the defendant is nil and get an order of injunction. Intellectually proper rights are there, property rights are there. So the bundle of rights which we were talking from the beginning of the jurisprudence, advent of the jurisprudence, has gone on a tremendous change over a period of time. But the base is that one has to have the right, means somebody has to oblige. It can't be done because the topic is right and duty relationship, jurisprudential analysis. So basic structure there for the defining the right or defining the duty cannot be lost sight of, even though some deviations have taken place. Certain other aspects of the matters are also there. Probably a few questions would also be there on that aspect of the matter. We will take it in the next session when it comes for that. We can deliberate further on those aspects of the matter. Positive rights in rem and rights in personam are well defined nowadays. There should not be any doubt about it. Proprietary and personal rights is also a species. Proprietary rights means a person's right in relation to his own property. Personal rights are the rights relating to status and arising out of a contract. This could be easily understood, and mainly 2 points of distinction between the proprietary and the property rights are put forward are: first, that the proprietary right is valuable, personal rights are incapable of valuation. Second, the proprietary rights are transferable, whereas personal rights are non-transferable rights. Hope this will take care of the today's aspect of the matter. Then the last aspect is vested and contingent rights. Of course, all of us know, many of you have already studied about it. A vested right is when all facts happening or not happening, of which it is necessary to create or vest a right. It has happened or not happened. One can easily see some of the statutes. When a land is acquired by an acquiring authority, after passing necessary notifications, following the procedure laid down in the law, there is what is called automatic vesting of the property with the acquiring authority. Courts have interpreted that. Courts have stated that an acquiring authority or the true owner need not make any celebration having acquired the right. There need not be any ceremonies for that. It is automatic. If the word automatic were to come in the judicial pronouncement, what may be the reason? The reason is obvious. The reason is it goes to the jurisprudential angle. See, the ownership transfer takes place because of the statutory declaration that yes, I have acquired this and this is the required legal procedure I have followed. There ends the matter. I need not prove anything. I need not make that I have taken the position there. Of course, to prove that, we may have some sort of a documentary evidence, drawing up of a measure, passing some orders, all these things are there. So one can easily now understand what is vesting. Likewise, attornment. X is the tenant of a property. I purchase the property from the Y, the owner. Now the Z is the owner. Should there be any specific requirement? Courts have said no. Ownership transferred. The contingent, whatever the requirements, consequences should follow. It should fall in place. Therefore, the tenancy, attornment of tenancy is automatic. So this is where the examples, when we see, we may be seeing all these things, we may be knowing all these legal principles day in and day out. But hardly any one of us would try to find out how it is automatic. That is where the celebrated principles of jurisprudence assume. Small examples day in and day out will be knowing it. We'll be doing it more in a ritualistic manner. More in the form of what is called customary. Okay, this is there, this has happened. We hardly think how it has happened. It is the duty. In fact, I should thank the organizers on this aspect of the matter. It has given a chance. Maybe as a law student, I also mugged up certain aspects of the matter in jurisprudence and then wrote something and got past the examination. Probably at that point of time, if it is riveted to our head, what the jurisprudential angle is, maybe I could have been a better student. Thank God, what happened is happened, be it what it may. Organizers have taken this responsibility beyond the college hours, all interested, I would say jignasus. All jignasus are joined over a webinar. all doubts that may arise in the young minds. Why young minds? I am a learner of the law, student of the law, even today, humbly say, every second, Kshanachak Kanashachaiva Vidyam Arthancha Sadet is the Sanskrit Subhashita, which says that the knowledge is to be acquired every second and money is to be accumulated pi by pi. So therefore, an opportunity for me to get back into the jurisprudential aspects of the matter. Of course, though in my busy schedule, I had requested the organizers to keep it on the last working day so that I can bestow some time onto this. On the judicial side, I had the tough day. Last week, before the vacation, the people will feel that, after the vacation, no courts are there. And there will be huge pressure on the court. Despite that, what little that notes that I had already made for myself in some other aspects of the matter, I all put together into one aspect of the matter. Of course, I Googled it on certain aspects of the matter, let me confess. And then also I laid my hands to the lectures by Justice Markandeya Kachu on the ancient jurisprudence. I also laid my hands onto my professor's notes on the jurisprudence, which I had kept it for my day-to-day advice and for the guidance, all these things. Last, legal and equitable rights is a contractual right. I may be failing if I don't mention that. Therefore, with the limited time slot that has been given to me today, of course, organizers were ready to take it up to little more time. I had other constraints also today. So therefore, in the Navaratri, this is a very auspicious occasion. We have joined for a lecture series, an inaugural series with a very beautiful title called Nyāya Vaibhava. We have to now remember how good our country was and what the best jurisprudence we had and how it has now transformed into all those aspects of the matter. One has to see. Manusmriti, if you see, I would only mention this, may not be out of place. In the advent of 14th century, Britishers did not know the word crime. The principles of law, principles of criminal law by Kenny, jurist, Western jurist, one can see there, Kenny writes it at the advent of 14th century. Britishers did not know what the word crime is. The concept of crime was not known to them. In the sense, such primitive was the society elsewhere. Such primitive. 14th century, advent of the 14th century, there lied an action before the court of law for something that has been committed by a person where some bodily injury or loss to the property would have happened. That action was taken into the court of law and it was called felony. So if you see now what we have inculcated from the Britishers, what we copied the criminal jurisprudence and the criminal procedure code, Indian penal code, all these criminal laws, we don't find the definition of crime even today. I am surprised to note this. It is only the Supreme Court in 1970s has to define what is a crime. Their lordships took the responsibility and defined it. It is the interplay of human emotions. That is the only today we have even today. In contrast to that, what was prevailing in this country when we had the civilized society? Manusmriti defined the crime. Maybe Manusmriti cannot be accepted with the yardstick of the constitutional guarantees and constitutional rights that we have today in our country in toto. But as a student of law, as a student of this great country, for that matter, any country, if somebody doesn't know the history of that country, then he is ruined. So therefore, if you look at Manusmriti, which is accepted by the Westerners, is the work of somewhere around 3rd century. If you accept that Manusmriti as the text that was there, and as a student of law, anxious student of law, try to understand what was the crime. Manu not only defines the crime, but also classifies into two. He says the crime can be classified into two, one for the woman and for the earth. ಒಂದು ಹೆಣ್ಣಿಗಾಗಿ, ಒಂದು ಮಣ್ಣಿಗಾಗಿ. This is what the Manu has written. If you see now the human rights, when you say, apart from all these things, it's a concept that we have recently developed in almost all jurisprudence which has been accepted across the globe. All wealth is related to the Mother Earth. So the wealth, the crime that can take place is for the wealth or for the woman. This is how the Manu classified in 3rd century. How can any student forget this and then move on with the jurisprudence? So we had not only definition of crime, but also classification thereof. The other day I was invited to give lecture in Jain University regarding the forensic science. There again, ancient forensics I have referred to. Probably we have one such lecture in the present series also with the organizers. The forensics we had 2,500 years we had the brain surgery. That's why I said, apart from development in the mathematics, the astronomy, astrology, all these aspects of the matter, science, we also have beautiful law very much in place in this country. Now, when the same is tinkered with the invasions and other aspects of the matter, time has come for us also to understand jurisprudence then existed and the modern jurisprudence. Nobody can advocate, you hang on to the old jurisprudence. We have accepted. I have taken oath 4 times that I will be administering the law in accordance with the constitution and laws. So we cannot go back. But as a student of law, as a jignasu, as a person who wants to understand the jurisprudence, person wants to understand what is the law, what is the right, what is the duty. Nobody prevents you from looking into the best practices or to be accepted all along, wherever it is. Ano badrantu kuta. Let the noble thoughts come from the nook and corner of the world. I keep my faculties open. So the country. Therefore, my request to all viewers here who have been listening patiently to this 1 hour of the lecture from me, honestly, for the time constraint, I am also not fully satisfied with the lecture in throwing light on the rather somewhat abstract subject of right and duty. But I also have the satisfaction that I have done to the somewhat a good extent. And anyway, I have assured that we can meet on some other day with the doubts on the particular aspects, especially the particular right. If you have a particular question on any one of the concepts, we can probably look into it. The other day also, we joined in some other lecture only on a particular point, a jurist view of what is the jurisprudence. Likewise, today it was, in general, when we want to cover, hardly 1 hour is sufficient, hardly 1 hour is sufficient for, doing justice to any one of these jurists, how it has evolved. But I have given it in the capsule forum. I know that learned people have joined here, students have joined here, my colleagues have joined here, professors have joined here, the persons who are teaching jurisprudence have joined here, general public have also joined here. To cater to the needs of one and all in the limited time, I have done my best today. I always be very much humble in saying there may be many errors in every one of us, or the speech that, or the time that we spend, or when we try to embark upon these subjects. The errors, if any, are all attributable to me, and whatever that the good that one could take it out from this 1 hour, I sincerely request you to ponder over it, adopt it, understand it, maybe with a new dimension, maybe with a new definition, maybe with the new concept, maybe with a repetition or a revision, I would say, repetition or revision. So I thank the viewers and the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Dean, of course, made me, of course, introducing me, had showered very good words. I do not know whether I deserve it or not. It's good on his part while introducing. Of course, I'm a student of law. I have made some small work in that field. My dissertation paper was also on that, forms of contract under Hindu jurisprudence. At that juncture, I had the occasion to look into the original scripts of Smritis that has been stored in the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute in Pune. So some progress is there, some background is there, and as a student of law, I am open to all criticisms as well, but healthy criticisms I would invite. Any one of you can have your suggestions, queries, and criticisms as well. I am free to take it. I also, in the process, learned many things. More than anything, going back to the jurisprudence and then getting prepared for this today's lecture was a revision for me as well. Some rights I should have given some more time for that. Probably it requires some time to make the person to understand the concept of it. But that will be on a different day, as I assured. I'm sure that the organizers will find time with me and all concerned, and we will meet again with these few words. I would once again like to thank all of you and the organizers especially. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Dear listeners, it was indeed a pleasure to hear to His Lordship, Hon'ble Justice Shri V. Srishananda, Judge, High Court of Karnataka, on the topic jurisprudential analysis of rights, duty, relationship. I'll not be wrong if I have to say that this was a real nyāya or justice which is being made by His Lordship for the said name which we have coined, called nyāya vaibhava. The justice is made to the topic and it was full of grandeur. Sir, I, on behalf of School of Law, Presidency University, Bangalore, profusely thank you for taking your precious time out to be with us virtually to deliver a lecture, in fact, an inaugural lecture of the lecture series on the said topic. Sir, looking forward, a small information to our viewers here. The questionnaire Google form would be sent across latest by tomorrow. You can ask your questions on the topic, and His Lordship is kind enough to agree that he would be spending his quality time in some time with respect to answering to your questions. Once again, sir, thank you so much for taking your time out. Thank you all.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Sir, hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, sorry, I had to run to another meeting. It was indeed a great pleasure to listen to you. And we have duly noted your suggestions on other aspects of this chapter, this particular lecture as well, especially the forensics and other things. Sorry, I could not come over the camera at that time because I was partially and parallelly on another meeting also. But
Absolutely,
I have duly
no
noted down your points, sir. And I think we will definitely take it forward. And once the other meeting is over, sir, I will call you back personally to again thank you. Thank you so much. I thank everyone concerned, my colleagues, the other invitees who have adorned this particular meeting. Thank you so much. And we will again organize more lectures by Hon'ble Justice V. Srishananda, sir. Thank you.